Hello, and welcome to Cindy's Corner. Today, boys and girls, if you've got the book, Owl Moon, go get it so you can review it with us. Owl Moon. And while they're getting their book, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and subscribe button so you can share Cindy's Corner with your family and friends. Owl Moon. Looks kind of cold, doesn't it? What makes it look cold? Snow, that's right. Okay, here's our title page, Owl Moon, by Jane Yolen. She's the author. And our illustrator is John Schuenher. Excuse me. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Paul and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind is a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. You ever had a train whistle to just blow? Kind of sad, isn't it? I could hear it through the woolen cap Paul had pulled down over my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out trains and dogs for a real long time. And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream. We walked on toward the woods, Paul and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Paul made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short, round shadow hampered after me, or bumped after me. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Paul always says. I had been waiting to go owling with Paul for a long, long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Paul held up his hands. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask. Then he called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." The sound of a great horned owl. Hoo, 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 hoo. Again, he called out, and then again. After each call, he was silent. And for a moment, we both listened. But there was no answer. Paul shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. Tree raccoon. We walked on. I could feel the cold as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my neck, on my back, and my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. You blow in your hands, it makes your own heat. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. I didn't ask what kinds of things hide behind black trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. Brave. Can't be scared. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above, as it seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing. And the snow below it was whiter than the milk in a cereal bowl. I sighed, and Paul held up his hands at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf, over my mouth, and listened hard. And then Paul called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." I listened and looked so hard, my ears hurt, and my eyes got cloudy with the cold. Paul raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came treading into its way through the trees. Hoo, 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 hoo. Paul almost smiled. Then he called back, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," just as if the owl were talking about supper or about the woods or the moon or the cold. I took my mittens off the scarf, off my mouth, and I almost smiled too. The owl's call came closer from high up in the trees on the edge of the meadow. Nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat in our mouths, the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Heard it, didn't he? Paul turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl. Shine the light. Just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without sound. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Paul said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warm or anything but hope. That's what Paul says, the kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. Sounded like he had to have the right moon, didn't it? So Paul knew what moon they had to have to go owling. Have you ever been owling? If you have, share it with your friends and then tell me. And because I've seen an owl, but he used to just come in at night and then he would leave. He would sit on a fence post, but then he would leave. He'd just come visit, and I didn't even have to go outside. So if you've ever seen an owl, tell me about that. If you've ever gone owling, tell me about that. And you can write it down and send it to Cindy's Corner 21@gmail.com, teachers. And most important, just like the little boy and his grandpa, his paw, give them a big old hug and tell them you love them. Have a great day.